Okay, let's kick us off. Welcome everyone to the closing session of No War 2022. Thank you to the over 40 speakers and performers and the hundreds of attendees from 22 different countries around the world who joined us for this year's unique conference on resistance and regeneration. First, some tech logistics before we get started. We have enabled closed captioning. If you would like to view the captions, you can click on the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to view the captions. Sometimes you need to click the More button and then you'll see other options and you can click on the CC Live Transcript button. As a reminder, the captions are done by robots, so please excuse any errors with the transcription. So we are going to start this closing session with a special performance from Rebeca Lane. Rebeca was not able to join us live, but Rebeca pre-recorded her performance especially for us at No War 2022. Rebeca Lane was born in Guatemala City in 1984 amid the Civil War. Early on, she began researching methods to recover the historical memory of those war years, subsequently becoming an activist for families whose loved ones had been kidnapped or killed by the military government. Through this organization work, she realized that women had less power in leadership, and thus she birthed a feminist vision. The theater has always been part of her life. She is currently part of a theater and hip hop group that created the Esquina in 2014 to address violence against youth in marginalized areas of the city with the use of graffiti, rap, breakdancing, DJing, and parkour. Since 2012, as part of the hip hop group Last Dose, she began recording songs as an exercise. In 2013, she released her EP, Canto, and she began a tour of Central America and Mexico. Rebeca has participated in many notable festivals and seminars in Central and South America on human rights, feminism, and the culture of hip hop. In 2014, she won the Proyecto L contest, which recognizes music that reinforces the right of expression. In addition, she works as a sociologist with several publications and lectures on urban youth cultures and identities, and more recently on education and its role in the social reproduction of inequality. She's the co-founder of the Somos Guerreras project that seeks to create opportunities for empowerment and visibility of women in the hip hop culture in Central America. So without further ado, here's Rebeca Lane.
She asked me to share that she really wanted to join live, but it's the thick of the rainy season in Guatemala, and the internet where she is so patchy that she decided to pre-record just to make sure we could hear it properly. So I'll play what she's just recorded for us.
Hola, mi nombre es Rebeca Lane, les saludo desde Guatemala. Estoy muy agradecida por la invitación para compartir mi música en el cierre de esta importante conferencia y este espacio para discutir las propuestas, las alternativas, las luchas en contra de la militarización, en contra de la violencia, en contra de las guerras. Yo desde mis 15 años participé como activista por la memoria histórica y en contra de la guerra aquí en Guatemala. Y mucha de la música que realizo actualmente pues habla de estos temas, pero también muy importante el tema de la violencia contra la mujer, que sabemos que la violencia hacia las mujeres ha sido utilizada como un arma de guerra, y en nuestros territorios la violencia que vivimos tan fuerte es una consecuencia directa de la guerra. Es el nivel de feminicidios y el nivel de violencia que estamos viviendo ahora como sociedad. Les quiero compartir esta primera canción que se llama Nos Queremos Vivas, que habla justamente acerca de la violencia contra las mujeres, pero también sobre las alternativas que las mujeres organizadas estamos haciendo frente a estos tipos de violencia que viene sobre todo del Estado. Soy la que pega en paredes las fotos de tantas desaparecidas. Soy la que pinta graffiti pidiendo justicia por todas sus amigas. Soy la que marcha con cara tapada y pechos valientes al aire. Yo soy la rabia y soy la ternura y no pertenezco a nadie. Traigo tambores, traigo clamores, a otra mujer hoy quitaron sus flores. No queremos más sufrir por mal de amores, no queremos niñas viviendo horrores, nos queremos vivas. Otro feminicidio en las noticias, nos queremos vivas. No daremos paz hasta que haya justicia. No daremos paz hasta que haya justicia. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. Soy la que exige aborto legal, soy la que acompaña en clandestinidad, soy la que apoya a su amiga cuando libremente ha elegido la maternidad, soy la que te escucha sin preguntar nada, la que responde todas tus llamadas, la que te sostiene si sos maltratada, soy la que grita yo te creo hermana, abrazamos los cuerpos plurales, somos seres duales, placeres astrales, defendemos tierras ancestrales, luchamos aunque nos señalen, nos queremos vivas. Otro feminicidio en las noticias, nos queremos vivas. No daremos paz hasta que haya justicia. No daremos paz hasta que haya justicia. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. No daremos paz hasta que haya justicia. 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 Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. Donde otras sembraron semillas, hoy me han nacido flores. Tengo un jardín en el pecho donde cultivo todos mis amores. No daremos paz hasta que haya justicia. Muchas gracias. Esta siguiente canción que les quiero compartir se llama Ni encerradas ni con miedos y habla acerca de los distintos tipos de violencia que estamos viviendo como mujeres en la región centroamericana, mesoamericana. Y es primero la violencia en las calles. Hay una violencia con acoso, con piropos, con toqueteos, con violencia política. Existe también una violencia al interior de nuestras casas. Muchas mujeres en nuestra región que viven violencia, la viven precisamente de parte de sus familias, de sus parejas, de sus novios, de sus familiares. Es decir, dentro de las casas también existe esta violencia, no solo afuera. Y también existe la violencia en las comunidades por toda la militarización que se está dando en los territorios para darle entrada a las empresas transnacionales. Y estas empresas en conjunto con el gobierno reprimen a la población, deshacen la vida comunitaria, deshacen toda la relación que existe con la naturaleza y con el entorno. Así que esta también es una violencia que afecta a las mujeres porque precisamente esta militarización y también las empresas privadas que trabajan para estas empresas también tienen a las mujeres como un objetivo para violentar a las comunidades. Así que esta canción que se llama Ni encerradas ni con miedos, porque a pesar de todas estas violencias, nosotras seguimos luchando porque queremos vivir felices y libres en nuestros territorios. Afuera ahora es un campo de batalla y mi cuerpo se ha convertido en trinchera. Salgo a la calle y me atacan con piropos y no te conozco y no quiero ese acoso. Y a veces en casa tampoco estoy segura. Mi pareja piensa que más que mía soy suya. Donde hay amor no debe haber dolor. Por eso sus insultos yo los tiro a la basura. Y no voy a convertir mi casa en una cárcel. Me voy a vestir como a mí me place. Cuando digo no es no, entiendes fácil. Tendré sexo solo cuando me dé placer. Seguridad, no más violencia en las casas. Seguridad, no más acoso en las plazas. Seguridad, no más armas en las calles. Seguridad, comunidad, no militares. Ni encerradas ni con miedos. Quiero vivir, no sobrevivir, salir a la calle y sentir que no tengo que defenderme, que tus palabras no pueden ofenderme y que tus armas no pueden atacarme. Quiero construir un país que me permita reír, soñar, cantar, bailar, vivir ni encerradas ni con miedos. Seguridad, nuestro derecho. Mi cuerpo es como la tierra. Tenemos piel morena, tenemos sangre fresca. Quieren colonizar nuestra fertilidad. Nos quieren extraer metales, nos quieren violar. Quieren bloquear el fluir de nuestras aguas. A nuestras playas quieren privatizarlas. Nuestra existencia no saben respetarla. Nuestra herencia hoy quieren expropiarla. Por eso en mi tierra no quiero más militares, no más criminales capitales que nos maten. Que el Estado me defienda y no que me ataque. Lo que las ancestras han cuidado yo cuidaré. Y no perdemos la esperanza, somos verdes. Cortan nuestras ramas pero luego crecen. Si estamos unidas seremos más fuertes. Haremos otro mundo cueste lo que cueste. Cueste lo que cueste. Cueste lo que cueste. Yeah. Ni encerradas ni con miedos. Ni encerradas ni con miedos. Quiero vivir, no sobrevivir, salir a la calle y sentir que no tengo que defenderme, que tus palabras no pueden ofenderme y que tus armas no pueden atacarme. Quiero construir un país que me permita reír, soñar, cantar, bailar, vivir ni encerradas ni con miedos. Seguridad, nuestro derecho. Ni encerradas ni con miedos. Ni encerradas ni con miedos. Muchas gracias. Y me voy a despedir con esta siguiente canción que se llama Kishampé. Esta canción es una colaboración con la cantautora Cachiquel Sarakurruchich, que hoy no está aquí conmigo, así que voy a cantar solamente mi parte de la canción, pero por si les gusta la pueden buscar. Y es una canción muy especial porque es una canción que construimos pensando en todos los pueblos del mundo que se están levantando en contra de las injusticias, en contra de los gobiernos que están atacando a las personas que deciden luchar por salud pública, por mantener el agua, por enfrentar esta crisis económica mundial en que nos tiene el neoliberalismo a los pueblos y de las que solamente se están beneficiando unas pocas personas en el norte global y las oligarquías locales, las empresas locales que también se benefician del empobrecimiento de las grandes mayorías. Y muchos pueblos del mundo se están levantando y diciendo basta, no queremos más esto. Así que esta canción que Kishampé, que en idioma cachical, que es el idioma de Sara, significa levantémonos. Levantémonos todos los pueblos del mundo en contra de este sistema de muerte y de injusticia. Renaceremos desde la ceniza, somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Renaceremos desde la ceniza, somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Nos han querido exterminar, nos quitaron la tierra. Nos han querido dominar, nos hicieron la guerra. Para obligarnos a callar cortaron nuestra lengua, pero crecemos somos como flores en la primavera. Nos tomamos las calles porque son nuestras. Ni de Piñera, ni Maduro, ni de Ortega. Sus falsas democracias van para la hoguera porque el pueblo no perdona a nuestros muertos, nuestras muertas. Ni sus militares, ni sus policías podrán cuidarlos de esta furia colectiva. Ni sus militares, ni sus policías podrán cuidarlos de esta furia colectiva. Renaceremos desde la ceniza. Somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Renaceremos desde la ceniza. Somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Renaceremos desde la ceniza. Somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Renaceremos desde la ceniza. Somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Somos poesía, somos resistencia. Somos el sueño de abuelos y abuelas. Ya nadie cree en las mentiras de la prensa. No nos podrán callar con toda su violencia. Renaceremos desde la ceniza. Somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Renaceremos desde la ceniza. Somos el fuego que quema la historia. Crecemos alto como la milpa y nuestros hilos tejen la memoria. Y que se levanten todos los pueblos del mundo para construir unas sociedades, un mundo con mucha más justicia. Muchas gracias.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. And I encourage everyone to look up Rebeca Lane. You can find Rebeca's songs on SoundCloud, YouTube. She's on Twitter, Instagram. So if you want to learn more about her work, I'll put her name in the chat. It's Rebeca Lane, 1C in Rebeca. So with that, I will turn it over to Kathy Kelly, World Beyond War's new board president, to give some closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Greta. I feel sure that all of us can hear those chains falling. And so thank you to Rebeca for stirring us onward as we close this conference. Certainly, I want to thank Greta, thank Rachel, and all of the people who've been participants. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to share a few thoughts. You know, for those of us in the United States, we have the reality this week that the President of the United States is going to the Middle East. And, you know, we're a country that supposedly was started in a revolutionary war, which declared there's no such thing as royal blood. But our president will now go to the Middle East and mingle with dignitaries, some of whom lay claim to having royal blood and a royal bloodline that enables them and justifies them in trying to steal and take the lands and resources of others and destroy those lands and resources. And this is something the United States has appropriated again and again, this idea of some divine mandate to go forth and commit genocide and create wars. And in this trip, the planners are saying, well, President Biden should accomplish a sort of a restart in relations with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And it would annoy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman if the president speaks to him about the war in Yemen, a devastating, cruel, bludgeoning war that's afflicted people with 8 years of airstrikes and an utterly punitive and brutal blockade. And so the idea is to kind of sweep Yemen under the carpet and certainly not to visit anybody in Yemen. Well, I believe that's cruel and wrong-headed. And in fact, what President Biden ought to do is go directly to a Yemeni refugee camp, go directly to the camp and listen there to the people who've been displaced, who've run for their lives, not once, not twice, many of them 3 times. Listen to the people who've had to bury their children, who are bereaved and whose children died because of explosions caused by United States weapons. The children starved, many of them, because of the wreckage inflicted on their country as fisheries and farms were destroyed. The children died of wasting diseases that are curable because of the blockade. That's where our president should go. And from that spot, being with people who are shell-shocked many times over because of the terrible war, he could then uphold the value of a truce, right now, which is going to be extended between Yemen and Saudi Arabia. And he should say that truces and negotiations are always the first thing to feature in conflicts. And this should be a teaching that would be stated with regard to the terrible war between Russia and Ukraine right now. And it's almost impossible to set up a truce and a ceasefire while the weapons are being poured in and the weapon profiteers are making tremendous profits. And so we began this conference hearing from the very brave Yuri Shevchenko, who clarified that when you get the stronger balance of power militarily, that doesn't at all mean that the group that has that military balance of power advantage is going to meet the needs of real people for food and shelter and economy. In fact, quite the opposite. And I would suggest that before leaving Yemen, President Biden should enjoy the exquisitely dignified architecture of Yemen. And enjoying that architecture, he would also be speaking volumes to people all around the world who don't believe in the idea of royal blood and who don't believe that royals are somehow entitled to destroy the architecture and history and dignity of another land. And then from that vantage point, perhaps he could then go on to meet with the dignitaries who are waiting to meet him, who perhaps will welcome him in their access to lavish wealth. At no point should the cares and concerns of the neediest people in the world be anything other than our first concern. My young friends in Afghanistan, since 2011, have been wearing blue scarves. They proclaimed the beautiful belief that there's one blue sky above us. I look at Milan and I know you've got a dark sky above you now, but holding up that light. We have been able to see in your struggle also that belief that words can be stronger than weapons, and that you don't want the weapons to destroy your land. And following the terrible Uvalde massacres in the United States, when a school was attacked and school children were killed and parents were so bereaved, the community so shocked. My young friend Ali from Afghanistan wrote me and said, how can we help comfort the grieving parents? And Ali was also struggling to comfort his own mother, because his older brother, because of poverty, had to join the Afghan military and was killed several years ago. So I reminded Ali of a time when he and his young friends had encouraged little street kids, kids laboring on the streets of Kabul, to gather together as many toy guns as they could possibly get their hands on, and they buried those guns. They heaped soil over the guns enough so that they could then plant a tree. And isn't that the kind of resilience that Greta and so many of the permaculture's artists and practitioners are encouraging us to experiment with, to take into our own hands the responsibility to take the actions that our governments very often won't take. And right now, sadly, buried under Afghanistan's land is many tonnages of unexploded ordnance. The emergency surgical centers for victims of war in Afghanistan tell us that every day as many as 3 people enter into their hospitals. They are still the victims of 40 years worth of explosives and contaminants in the ground. And so some of those young Afghan friends who planted the tree on top of the graveyard of guns are now in a city called Mertola in southern Portugal. And Eunice Neves and Rosemary Morrow, renowned permaculture practitioners, have been enabling these young people to break the terrible vicious cycle that occurs. It's a cycle that's aggravated by climate degradation, climate catastrophe, and it causes depopulation, and the land itself becomes very, very vulnerable to desertification. But that process can be broken. That vicious circle can be broken as people learn how to heal the land, and it really begins to heal them. And so we so admire the Terra Sintropica Association in Portugal, which has welcomed these 8 young Afghans. And they themselves, through their words and their actions, help us see that the situation is urgent, and it's only going to be through daily, careful effort that we'll be able as a planet to survive. And Eunice and Ro asked me in these closing remarks to also share with you the very remarkable guidelines that they created for establishing emergency gardens in the Middle East. And these guidelines are now circulating through so many communities, including communities in beleaguered Afghanistan. And I'm so fortunate to get their responses saying, we're watching the spinach and the leeks and the garlic and the herbs grow, and we feel ourselves so much better. Young people in Pakistan, young people now who have fled to other parts of the world are doing their best to regenerate the land. And truthfully, if they don't do this in Afghanistan, they could starve. If they don't engage in this kind of resilience, they may not make it. The US should clean up the tons of unexploded ordnance that's been dropped on other lands. The United States should say, we're sorry, and pay reparations. But meanwhile, we must, all of us, seek solidarity to take what actions we can, healing the earth and ourselves. And you know, the persistence of militarism is so often promoted as being the language of militarists who really understand what's going on in the world. But my young Afghan friends, I believe, were the realists. They're not deluded idealists. And the people we're going to hear from now on the mountainside of Sinjajevina, you are the realists. You're not the deluded idealists. And so together, knowing that the realist option leads toward collective suicide, let's whisper, and let's shout. Adelante. Adelante las chicas compañeras. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And yes, next up is representatives from the Save Sinjajevina campaign in Montenegro, who will be joining us for some closing remarks and an opportunity for all of us to take action collectively in support of their Save Sinjajevina campaign, which aims to permanently block a NATO military training ground and preserve the Balkans' biggest mountain grassland. As we've been gathering virtually over the past 3 days, Save Sinjajevina representatives are organizing a solidarity camp on the ground there and building momentum for a petition delivery on July 18th, which will be delivered to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, and the EU delegation to call on them to officially cancel this military training ground. So let's hear from Milan and the representatives of the Save Sinjajevina campaign about what they're up to this week on the ground there. Thank you so much for joining us, Milan, in the middle of the night on the mountain.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Milan Sekulović, and I'm the son of Sinjajevina, that is the biggest mountain in Montenegro, the biggest glacier in Montenegro, and also the second biggest in Europe. And tonight I'm on the place which we call Margita, where we have a protest 2 years ago for two months. Exactly 51 days, and we stop the big military exercise where they plan to bombing our mountain. And they also, the government of Montenegro make a decision about military training ground without any consultation with local community and with the people who live there. And they ignore us, and they trying to represent Sinjajevina as a desert without people and without anything. That's the perfect place to put some bombs. But we show up and we say Sinjajevina is not alone, and we exist here. And we are part of one big community. And Greta right now sent a link for petition to Save Sinjajevina, and we will bring that petition to Prime Minister and also European Commission. What is the main point? Why I am tonight in the middle of the mountain and on one hill with one place where we have a signal for internet to connect on this conference? Because we want to show we exist here, because maybe we don't have a good connection with good internet and possibility to make even phone calls, but we have a community here, and the government of our country absolutely ignoring us. I think that is not a problem just of us, that is the problem on many places in the world. But we are not some crazy lunatics who fight against, I don't know, the big military allies like NATO, for example. I think fight for peace is only a good future, because if we don't have a peace, we don't gonna have anything. Without peace, we're gonna lose everything what we have. Last night we have a big session on the World Beyond War conference, and I say we are in different zone, but also in different month, because there is also July, but 2 days ago we have a November, and but we have a group of campers here, and they say, okay, that is small sacrifice if we want to really protect the mountain. So we are ready for fight, but also in the same time we need allies, and we see good allies in people in World Beyond War, and also with all of you tonight with us. Also, I must say this solidarity camp starts on 8th July, and today, surprisingly, we have a visit from the Prince of Montenegro. We are not still monarchy, but we have a prince, and he visiting us tonight and speak with people in the camp. And that was very nice event tonight. It's absolutely surprising and absolutely spontaneous. And with every day, more and more people support our goal in Montenegro and in the world. And we think that is the recipe to save our mountain, save Sinjajevina, because the government of Montenegro react only on the pressure. And if they have some pressure from EU or United States, they will react. And we think we have a good friends here on this conference and on some other places. And we are sure we can win this battle. It's not easy, but this is the fight like David against Goliath. But we know who is the winner in that. We people are always the winner when we must understand the power is in our hands. Because, for example, I don't believe in military. I don't believe in guns. And I think if we really need, really want peace world, we must destroy the military training grounds and the weapon, because if we want to create peace, that is more easy than create war. Why? Because peace is normal state, normal for the people. War is absolutely bad things. And I think nobody reasonable don't want any kind of war and destruction. So that is it from me, and thank you very much. And regards from Sinjajevina in Montenegro. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Milan. And I'm going to put the link in the chat again. That is the link for the petition, everyone. Please sign the petition. There are almost 12,000 signatures on the petition. We want to get that higher and higher. As Milan said, it is so important to show international solidarity for the Save Sinjajevina campaign, to really highlight this issue, to share their story around the globe. And that way we can put enough pressure on the government to stop this NATO military training ground. So everyone, please sign and share that petition. If you have different community groups, please invite Milan and the Save Sinjajevina representatives to speak to your groups and do radio shows and news articles and whatever venues we can offer to amplify their stories. So thank you, Milan.
Thank you very much.
So that is officially a wrap. We have finished 3 days of No War 2022. We have been recording all of the sessions throughout the 3 days. So we will send out those recordings early this week coming up. We will also send out the evaluation form in the next couple of days. So be on the lookout in your inboxes for the recordings and the evaluation form. And we invite all of you to continue your involvement with us at World Beyond War. We have tons of stuff going on all the time, lots of upcoming online courses and webinars. And in particular, there are a few important dates coming up on the calendar. In early August, we have Hiroshima and Nagasaki Day to commemorate the bombings. So we have a few events organized around that, some film screenings. And then in September is the International Day of Peace. And we have a few events lined up around that as well, including a debate featuring our executive director, David Swanson. So go to our website, WorldBeyondWar.org, and you can find all of our upcoming events and ways to get involved. I'm also going to put the link in the chat for the conference program. Everyone should have a copy of the program booklet. It's a PDF. It's kind of a little memento you can take with you as a memory of the conference. I just put the link again in the chat. And that has a lot of information about all of our speakers. It also has advertisements from our sponsoring organizations, as well as different kind of ads to let you know what's happening in the World Beyond War network. So do check out the program to see all that information and ways that you can continue your involvement with us. I will also say that many of our World Beyond War chapters were started by people who first came to a conference and were inspired and then kind of took the work off into their communities and started World Beyond War chapters. So if you are feeling inspired, please do reach out to us and we can provide you with support to start a World Beyond War chapter in your area. So I will put our general email address in the chat, which is info@worldbeyondwar.org. So that's a lot of information. We will wrap up here and we have a little bit over, we have about 40 minutes actually. The expo area will stay open until 5 p.m. Eastern time. We've got a little bit of leeway here because we're running a little bit late. So you're welcome to go over into the expo booths and continue your conversations. Please do check out the expo booths of our sponsoring organizations. So yeah, 40 minutes for final networking and expos. And thank you everyone for this amazing conference, Resistance and Regeneration.